Toastmasters for a while, but tonight he's going to be speaking about some nonsense that's going on here in our state of Massachusetts. He's going to tell you what you can do to end it. Let's welcome Charlie. Charlie?
There is some nonsense going on here in Massachusetts, and you can help end it. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. It is great to be back after such a long time of not being here and working on my speaking skills. And I'm kind of glad my summer schedule is allowing me to come to the meetings and participate, which I think is going to be good. Last summer, there was a decision that went down in the Supreme Court that was called the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. Bruin was a sheriff in upstate New York that thought that people could get a carry permit if they had a proper cause. Now, just being able to carry a gun wasn't proper cause. You had to have someone that was after you for some reason. Maybe it was you're a domestic violence survivor. Maybe you've got some disgruntled employees, things like this. He was trying to make it so that people couldn't have carry permits so they could carry a firearm on their body while they're out and about. At the time, 24 states, I believe, 24 or 25 states had what we call constitutional carry or permitless carry, which means you don't have to have government permission in order to carry a firearm to be able to protect yourself outside of your house. This happened last June, as I said, and a lot of people got upset about this, particularly the anti-gun politicians in Massachusetts. Back in January, House Speaker Ron Mariano gave this job to Michael Day to go out and do this thing called the listening tour. The gun law listening tour is what he called it. There were 11 of them in the state. I went to 8 of them, and I wrote about each of them. Most of the time, he had anti-gun folks that were on the panel, social workers, school administrators, principals, superintendents. There were a couple times when they had some pro-gun people, but not a lot of them. Rep. Day said he was supposed to listen to everybody, do a top-down evaluation. I spoke up at a number of these. I think I spoke at about 5 or 6 of the 8 that I went to. 3 weeks go by after the last one, and Representative Day pulls out a 141-page bill that he wants to cram down everyone's throat in the month of July. 141 pages. He wanted to change the definitions that we have for firearms. He wanted to do a lot of things that are completely egregious. One of the things that I find offensive as a firearm instructor is he wanted to require live fire training. Now, live fire training is a great idea to do, but we don't have to have any other constitutional right where you have to have permission or you're required to have any sort of training. And it's not just that he had live fire training that he wanted you to do, he also wanted you to get some de-escalation skills. So you'd have to work with people and talk to somebody that's, I don't know, possibly going to threaten you or kill you. He would want you to talk them down before you decide to use your firearm. He also wanted you to go through some training that required active shooter training. Sounds great. I think people ought to have it. I've been through a little self-defense training and some force-on-force training. I went through some last year. I went through some out in Ohio a couple years ago. It's great stuff. This is exhilarating, but you shouldn't have to have it in order to exercise any of your constitutional rights. And it's not just that he was going to have these training requirements, but he wanted to have gun-free zones almost everywhere in Massachusetts. So if a store didn't put up a sign that said you could carry a gun there, you couldn't carry a gun there, right? They'd have to put a sign up that says we allow people to carry in our business. And if they don't have that, you don't have to, you are not going to be able to carry there. Some other things that they had on the bill are they eliminated some of the police carve-outs. Now, I'm not necessarily for the police having the ability to carry in places that you and I can't carry, or for them to have a couple of firearms that I can't have, or them to have magazines that have more than 10 rounds that you and I can't have. But this took that away from the police. So a lot of times they get those carve-outs where they get special treatment. This bill did not allow them to have any special treatment, and this meant the police were speaking up about this. There were at least 2 towns, I think there were 3 towns. I know Ware was one of them. Plymouth was one of them. I don't remember the third town, but there were a few towns of police that were speaking out against this bill. There was also the Mass Chiefs of Police Association spoke out against it as well, because it's going to make it virtually impossible to enforce all of these laws. Now, if you've got some sort of a store and you want to put up your sign or you don't want to put up a sign that says people can't carry in there, how can they enforce that? Well, I don't know, you're going to have to maybe buy metal detectors, or maybe hire a police officer or a security officer to wand you, or wand everybody as they come into your business to make sure that they're not carrying a firearm. The other thing that are called for is registration of all firearms. Now, in Massachusetts, we have transfer registration, and this is a Jedi mind trick. But if somebody moved here from another state and they had firearms, they don't have to let Massachusetts know they have them. They just have to get a license to have them. So not only will these people have to register all their firearms with Massachusetts, they would also have to register magazines as well. Now, a magazine is a Pez dispenser that holds ammunition. I know friends that have several hundred of these. They don't put serial numbers on these when they make them, so the state was going to have to make serialize the magazines. There's also some storage laws that were in there, and there's a lot of other nonsense. Gun stores where you can no longer have a gun room. You'd have to lock up all of your firearms individually. This applied to you and I if we had a gun room, but it also applies to gun stores. So gun stores just couldn't put up the bars and lock their doors. They'd have to lock up all of their firearms individually, which is completely ridiculous. Here's what you can do. Here's how this affects you. Even if you're not a gun owner, even if you don't want to have a gun, if you're a non-gun folk, or if you're an anti-gun folk, here's how it affects you. Let's go back to the gun-free zone signs. So if a store puts up a sign that says, you can carry there, I can carry there and I'll be happy and comfortable and everything will be fine. But if there's not a sign there, then people can't legally carry there. Well, do you know what that makes that? That makes it a soft target. That means that bad guys can go in there and know that there's no one that's going to legally be carrying and stop them from committing any sort of a crime. So when there's a small percentage of people that carry firearms and have a firearms license and can travel and carry when they go to the stores, this also affects you. So what you can do about it is this. You can find out who your legislator is if you don't know who it is, and write to them and tell them that HD.4420 is a bunch of baloney. It's all infringement. Everything that's on this list is infringement. It's 141 pages. Now, I'm not going to talk about the ghost guns because it talks about that. There's some other stuff that it doesn't address, and what it doesn't address is criminals. What it's going to do is turn someone like me into a felon overnight. And if you have a gun license, it's going to turn you into a felon overnight. This is what you can do to stop this nonsense in Massachusetts. Thank you.